You have received this outline in the mail, by email, but you received two documents. This one will be the outline that we will use for our discussion tonight. The other one is for you to include in your folder for study material. And it is from that, it's called, it's from a book, Christian Victory Instruction by Frederick Keeler. Frederick Keeler wrote along the same time of, or maybe a little after, Joel Goldsmith and other writers. But the reason that this is important to us right now is that while we've been studying The Thunder of Silence by Joel Goldsmith, and that book has been the foundation for a few years of study for us, Christian Victory Instructions helps us to really apply in a very simple way the goal of Joel Goldsmith's teaching, which is practicing the presence. And that's why I am using this right now to help us, as someone says, get into the source of it. There's another reason that I am choosing to use this to underpin what we're studying right now. And it is coming out of a personal experience of a recent episode that I experienced, which could be called a medical emergency or urgency. And it happened just a few days ago. It required me to make a decision to go to the emergency room. But when it happened on Sunday, this is going to probably be the essence of my talk on this coming Sunday when I speak at LA Third, because it was Sunday before last when I spoke at LA Third when this happened. And when it happened, I received some love calls from people who were concerned about me, suggesting that I go to the emergency room because they witnessed it. And however, when it did happen on Sunday, what I decided to do was practice the presence. I came home, and instead of rushing to the emergency room, which was the urgency of several callers who called me out of love, I decided to do a run through my material that we have been studying here. And I just took a moment of silence and I asked Spirit to guide me to exactly what I should concentrate on. And without opening any other document, my fingers clicked on this Christian Victory Instruction in my references guide source. And I went straight to this lesson where Wheeler writes, Keeler, I keep calling him Wheeler, it's Keeler, 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 has 7 lessons on practicing the presence. And I meditated on that. And there's another one that I studied, meditated on, which was out of The Thunder of Silence, I believe, if not another one of our teachers. And between those two documents, I just decided to do nothing the rest of the day on Sunday. Well, after I went to brunch with my niece right after that. And then I decided to meditate on this that we're about to go through here for the rest of the day, the rest of the night. And then calls were coming in on Monday. You need to go to the emergency room. But what I teach is this. Thank you for the doctors. Thank you for medicine. Thank you for all these millions of dollars of insane equipment that is nothing but a gift and gifts from God to heal and for our needs. But my practice is that, as has been, well, I have said to you and sharing with you over the years, those of you who were with us on Tuesdays remembered I would come in reporting from time to time how it was when I had come from my 6 months of the doctor's appointments, or having sent something and gone to the doctor, or come back with these serious diagnoses. We want to put you on this treatment plan for that. We want to give you the medicine for this. We want to start this and start that, and then they would follow up with calls. Well, why haven't you kept the appointment? Why haven't you done this? And why haven't you done that? But I always would wait until my spirit says, now go for the appointment. Because when I go, I am not going in my mind to confirm what you see, but to confirm what I don't yet see, which I know is there, and that is perfection. There is health, there is healing, and there is wholeness. And so I decided to practice this once again. I am not suggesting that anybody do what I do or anybody do what I did, because you might end up being dead. So I'm not suggesting that you do that. Because I'm sure if it was, I have wisdom and discretion to know when to do this and when not. Well, I decided on Monday, no, I'm not ready to go. Monday night, no, I'm not ready to go. My spirit didn't lead me that it was time to go for the confirmation that there is nothing there except for that which is truly there. And there's health and wholeness and perfection. And so it was Tuesday morning, I decided, okay, now I will go. But that's after I had meditated on this and practiced what I'm about to share with you. Practice of the presence. And it was then, after going there from 10 a.m., getting home at midnight. Did you hear that? From 10 a.m. in urgent care to midnight. When I came home, they had taken me through the CT scan, the MRI, the ultrasound, with perplexing looks after each procedure, and finally saying, well, the only thing I can see is that you're just dealing with normal wear and tear. Go home. And so I went home skipping and laughing, saying, just like I thought, there is nothing there except what is there. But Thea, there's an adage or a saying, you know it better than I don't tell it right, but there's a story about a man was leaving town and there was this disease that was on his way into town. And he asked him, the man asked, where are you going? He said, I'm going into town to kill everybody who's there. And then on the return, when the man was returning, the disease was leaving, the man asked the disease, well, did you succeed? He said, no. Did you kill everybody there? He said, no, I killed one, and fear killed the rest. And so that's what I was dealing with, was dissolving the ice, letting the ice dissolve, letting the ice melt away with success. This that I'm sharing with you will be the introduction to where we are, how we are continuing our Tuesday gathering. What this experience did for me, it redirected my own practice that I will engage in and going forward from that moment and from this day forward. Less and less talking and teaching, but more and more practicing and demonstration. And so to that end, I'm making a decision tonight that I will be announcing more so in my Sunday talk. We're going to take healing school on a deeper level and on a higher and higher level. And I'm challenging you. I'm challenging myself. Because you see, we don't have any other place to go but here. If I had known any other place to go, or any other practitioner to go to, or any other minister, or whatever in that moment. Hey, what we need to be reminded of, which I will say on Sunday, is that this teaching, not only this teaching, our science of mind, not only unity, not only Christian Science, not only all of these metaphysical movements, all grew out of personal healings of those founders of those organizations, of those teachings. And so this stuff is real. You know, when we're studying Goldsmith, people were healed in coming to Goldsmith and study and reading Goldsmith and Quimby and Mary Baker Eddy. And so that is what's happening for us. And that is what should be happening for us more and more. So I'm dedicated to that. And so I just want to pause to say how much I appreciate you and how much I recognize the seriousness in which you're taking this also, because you wouldn't be here tonight. I'm looking at the numbers of people who have joined tonight. And most of this number have been here consistently. You would not be here as consistently as you have been if you didn't have faith, if you didn't believe, and also if you didn't understand this stuff. Because people who do tap in to visit now and then, they come in and they go because they don't understand this. Well, number one, you understand it and you believe and you have trust and faith. I am just here out of boldness to say, yes, this stuff works, so let's work it. What I was leading to say is that instead of haphazardly meeting for our guided meditations, and instead of doing the alternate Tuesdays, out of my personal experience, I was reminded that there are people in this group who are here for personal healings. There are people here who are in this group who have urgent needs, who have diagnoses and prognoses and have impossibles and insurmountables and so forth. So, and they have shared it. And so because of that, I've made my decision that I'm going to continue to practice every Tuesday instead of alternate Tuesdays. It's for me and it's also for you. But we're going to be doing less and less talking and more guided meditation and practicing towards demonstration. And that's going to be based on this, the practice of the presence. For all of the months that we stayed on Thunder of Silence with Goldsmith, that's all Goldsmith was talking about, the practice of the presence. This writing here from Keeler, he is giving you, there is no more, I don't think that there's any writing that you will find that simplifies how the technique and how to practice the presence than what I'm sharing with you now and what we will be working with for the next few weeks. First steps in the practice of the presence, he says, to heal the troubles of life, all of them, there is one basic method. This method, in its first conception and under one and all inclusive term, is the practice of the presence of God. I will reread that. To heal the troubles of life, all of them, there is one basic method. This method is the practice of the presence of God. The practice of the presence of God. What do you mean practice? The practice of the presence of God. No untoward, no unpleasant thing can occur in the presence of God. No negative situation in your life, no sickness, no nothing can occur in the presence of God. God can only love and create. Now, how can there be such a thing as not the presence of God. We know the presence of God is everywhere. We know that there's not a spot where God is not. God is. And because God is everywhere, and God is in everything, and God is as everything. So it's just natural, it's just axiomatic, it's just common sense that you're always in the presence of God. Then why do we need a lesson? Why? Why do we need a lesson and a teaching on how to drink water or how to breathe air? How to eliminate, how to whatever, how to, do you need a lesson to smell, to taste? But why do we need a lesson and a teaching on how to practice the presence of God? And yet, that is the cause of all problems in life, is not practicing the presence of God. He goes on to write, you cannot defile, nor, of course, God, let's reread that. God can only love and create. God cannot defile, nor, of course, can he be defiled. Sin, sickness, disease, hatred, bias, contempt cannot occur when we are before him consciously. Now, if you notice how I diagram the sentences and put hyphens to separate words, that is to bring our attention so that we won't overread and overlook the importance of each singular word. I remind you from time to time that I'm a student of Swedenborg. Swedenborg, Emanuel of Swedenborg, is a 17th century mystic, which means that he wrote in the 1600s. And he wrote what is called the Arcana of the scripture. And in it, well, everybody can't read it and understand it. And when I picked it up, I looked at it and it was strange. It was like a foreign language, but I was determined to understand it. And it is my practice to start from the beginning that I do know how to read it. I don't take a complex mind, a mind of complexity when I'm studying spiritual things. I affirm before I read it that I understand it, because I believe that the author of whatever I am reading is my teacher and will reveal to me the inner meanings of whatever it is that I'm studying. And that's what happened to me with Swedenborg. And when Swedenborg interpreted the scriptures metaphysically or spiritually, his practice was to interpret every single word in the sentence. Every article, every word had a significance. And so when we're reading spiritual, you have to look at every word independently. So let me reread that. When we are before him consciously, and there it is right there, practicing the presence of God is based on this one singular word, one single word, consciously. When we are before him consciously, if we are to picture him sitting in his court as king of the universe, we could not imagine other than serenity as being before him. Whatever transpired there would occur in peace, poise, happiness, and security. When you're in the presence of God, there can only be peace, poise, happiness, and security. And that's your test to know if you are in the presence of God. The place, the state, the occurrences would always be perfect. All this, of course, is not actually a picture because there is no possibility of picturing serenity, he says. We can nevertheless picture people. We could picture a happy occasion. The occasion would then outpicture the happiness. That is, happiness as reality would register within people and become manifest in the situation before us. So it is that the things of God, the powers and qualities of our Creator, can and do register within us and upon our lives. God can only register life, and the true things of life upon us or upon our daily existence for us. The things of life are states, conditions, powers. We know these as principles. The things of life are states, conditions, powers. We know these as principles. God must certainly exist, live, and move in peace. Peace is one of his principles. It is a phase of God's goodness. We cannot think of God without thinking of peace. It is a phase of God's goodness. We cannot think of God without thinking of peace. The further fact is that we cannot think of God our Father, the creator of the universe, without being in peace, without being in peace. To come into the consciousness of God is to come into peace. The more we are conscious of God, the more peace we have. The more we are conscious of God, the more peace we have. But a far more correct statement is the more peace we are. The more we are conscious of God, the more peace we are. Where there is real life, there is peace. It is equally and axiomatically true that where there is peace, there is real life. As for me, on Sunday, when I left, I was determined to find peace and to be at peace. And one thing I didn't want to do was answer the phone. And I answered the phone selectively. I did not answer all of the calls as I looked at the caller ID. I can remember when back in the day, it was in the, Dr. Dan was of course my minister, and I was working in the church, and I had an episode, and I went again to the doctor, and the doctor in the exam said, "Oh, we need to admit you." I'm walking around. I'm walking around not feeling well. I can't remember everything that was going on. And I decided to go to the doctor. And they wanted to admit me. And then, so the people came around, sitting at the bedside, talking and whatever. Then suddenly, a counselor came in. I think she was from social service or something like that, whatever her job was. And do you have any questions? And no, But I said, I need to go home first. So I went home, and I don't know if the laptops had just come out or what. I went home and got something electronic that I wanted to continue to do my work. And I got reading material, and I sat up in the bed, and I was just taking care of business, doing whatever I was doing or whatever electronic device I had and whatever. And then I don't know if it was a cleaning lady or some staff person came in and said, I just had to come in here to see who these people are talking about. And she told me they were talking about my behavior, so forth and so on. And so it's just been some years ago. I don't know if it was the same night or the next morning, the doctor told me to go home. And that's because I sat there and I worked on myself until I came to this place of peace. This is what I did this time. I worked on myself until I came to that place of peace. He goes on to write, and I should say, I sent word to Dr. Dan to tell him not to put me on the prayer list. I sent word to say I don't want anybody praying for me. There is not one person in my family who knew that I had gone to the hospital because I'm very careful and concerned about the thought of how other people are seeing me. Here I am trying to work on perfect peace. Here I am trying to remove all fear. Here I am working on seeing nothing. And then I've got people around me who's praying about what they see or what they think. That's contrary. That is absolutely contrary to anything that I believe. And I know that that is going against my practice. We go on to read here. If we knew perfect peace, we would know God. If we knew God, we would know perfect peace. But we must go further with this. To know peace, we must be peaceful. To be peaceful, we must be peace itself. We only know that which we are. We are that which we know. All of this reasoning is an exercise of Christian metaphysical consciousness. In it, our consciousness is active. It is active about God and about peace. Should we continue this activity, this thinking of God and about God, we will arrive at peace. Should we continue this activity? What activity? This thinking of only about God and not about the problem, we will arrive at peace. More than that, we will arrive in the presence. What is the topic? Practicing the presence of God. Practicing the presence of God is all about an attitude, and this attitude is an expression of an altitude in consciousness, rising above the problem, the situation. And in doing that, you're thinking about the situation. Well, that's hard to do when you have to overcome the thinking of the people around you, the prognosticators. The wind that Reverend Lisa spoke about on Sunday, she said, the wind is coming. Well, that's how I perceive the wind. And so I had to block the wind that was blowing around me, coming from other people's minds and thoughts. More than that, we will arrive in the presence. God is always present. We are before him and with him always. No man can escape his creator, but the conscious presence of God is another thing. But the conscious presence of God, see, that's another thing. We could be beside a river and know little of it. We can ignore almost anything. Some people rarely look at the sky, but it is there all the time. Some people rarely look at the sky, but it is there all the time. Just as the sky is there all the time, God is there all the time. But we get confused when God shows up as confusion, dizziness, cancer, prostrate, high blood pressure, broke, busted, and disgusted, or anger in a relationship. That's still God, as Reverend Lisa said on Sunday. God is in everything. God is good all the time, she said. Can you realize whatever you're experiencing right now that God is still good in that thing? If you don't, you're not at peace. He goes on to say, some people rarely look at the sky, but it is there all the time. The sky is also beneath our feet. Well, how is the sky beneath your feet? Although, can you see the sky beneath your feet? Although we cannot see it. Why? Because we do not look through the earth to its other side. Think on that. The sky is also beneath your feet, although you don't see it, because you cannot look through the earth to its other side.
we have to reason that the sky is there, and no one can deny that it is there. So it is with God. God is here, God is there, God is everywhere, God is in the problem. One way, and the best way to come into the powers that God has for us, is to practice being conscious of the fact that he is present. Still, he is present. The thousands of stars become known to those who spend hours looking at them, studying them, being consciously present with them by directing their thinking mind toward them. So dwelling mentally upon a thing makes us acquainted with us. Let's don't get distracted here. He is teaching us how to practice the presence of God. He is teaching us that you practice the presence of God by training your mind to never take your mind off of God, practicing the presence of God, practicing the presence of God. So he's going to give you some exercises here, an exercise here at the end about how to consciously practice the presence of God in a practical way. You know, when you're holding your cell phone, you know, you look at that as, you know, God is in this. This is an idea, a creation of God. God is in this thing. God is, and when you practice the lessons of A Course in Miracles, oh, it is redundant. It is repetitive all the way through there, teaching you how to see God in all things, recognizing God in absolutely everything, visible and invisible, tangible and intangible, in all experiences. God, 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 God. Practicing the presence of God. And to the end where you're experiencing some serious illness or some serious catastrophe or whatever, it's still, you got to practice the presence of God in that. It is still a perfect manifestation of God. Dwelling mentally upon a thing makes us acquainted with it. We must associate with that which we wish to understand. The man who loves dogs comes to understand dogs. And he understands dogs because he loves them, thinks of them, and relates with them. If we love God, the writer says, we come to understand him. If we understand him, we understand his great powers. And we come into and under his laws and subject to their great protection. We come to see and know those things to which our mind is directed. Because of all this, we find that to practice being conscious of God brings us into his powers and abilities. That's the end of the message. But let me emphasize what we learned and what we are challenged to practice. Because of all this, we find that to practice being conscious of God, that is what brings us into his powers and abilities, practicing the presence of God. Now, that's enough for our first basic foundational lesson as we prepare to go through these 7 lessons in the other document that I sent you. He has 7 lessons on this idea, this concept. But I don't know what my approach will be in terms of how I will use it going forward. The important thing here is not how I plan to use it and share it with you, but how you will use it. Let's unmute yourselves here so that we can continue to talk. And I'd like some interaction here or feedback and your thoughts on what I'm saying here now. And that is not so much how I will use it, but how you will use it. I'm including
Reverend,
this. I sent you a folder here, a folder already for the Healing School. I'm adding this to the Healing School folder because the Tuesday nights is simply morphing into what I had intended to do for the offshoot of a guided meditation series. We're going to do it on Tuesdays. And we're going to meet on each Tuesday and not alternate Tuesdays. So this material I sent you, I'm hoping that you will read it on your own, all of it, or in part, or just focus on some parts of it, because I will be drawing from any part of it, not necessarily in any sequential order, like lesson 1, lesson 2. I'm studying it all and I'm meditating on it all. And I will be simply talking from certain aspects of what I am seeing there, or conducting a guided meditation on certain principles and aspects that is coming out of the material. I don't plan to go through lesson by lesson by lesson. And so I'm encouraging you and challenging you to read it and study it. And you will see what I have seen in it. And you will be able to more simply practice the presence. And the single word that you're focusing on here is consciously practicing the presence. And so it is. Let me hear from you. How do you feel that this will help you? What do you think about the whole idea or concept? Just however you would like to share.
Reverend Ahman.
Yes, Reverend Lisa.
Reverend Lisa. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hey.
Look, everything that happens in life is working together for our good.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that is said, that we learn, that we bring in is for our good. And what happened on Sunday was for our good.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Sunday before last. It was for us to sit in the process, as Reverend Gerald said, to hear what was said and not what is done, because the word says, look beyond appearances. We always want to look at what's happening, but let us look at what is going on, because you just said God is in the mix of it all. If we see that, if we embrace that, if we embody that, if we allow that to saturate us, that God is in the mix. I said it on Sunday. We say God is good and good all the time. Okay, so let it be good in this time.
Yep.
There is nothing wrong. There is something calling us to a higher place of being, a higher place of consciousness. And that's what is calling us to be, in a higher place. And I felt that Reverend Gerald, he illustrated that. And here we are. You said there is nothing wrong. There is no mistakes, never have been, and never will be. Everything is working together for our good.
Yes.
So can you grasp that? That's what the universe is saying. Can you grasp that? Whatever comes up, are we looking at the universal place of being? It is so, and so it is.
And so it is.
Well, it's interesting that when when you feel that you are driven to the point of considering going to the emergency room, it sure doesn't feel like nothing's wrong. But what I have discovered, because Reverend Ahman, I have had now a number of occasions where 99.8% of the people would have gone to the emergency room, and I stayed home. And what I have found is an essential part of practicing the presence is being guided. What has kept me, healed me, gotten me away from feeling something being wrong is that I've been guided in many cases to employ measures that occurred to me that were the remedies to what was awry. So part of that presence is the guidance that is available there, and it's wonderful.
Good. Thanks for sharing.
And then let me add to that with Travis, Reverend Lisa, is that if we could say that nothing is wrong, but something need to be maybe be tended to.
Mhm. Yes.
Because our words carry weight. And if we say wrong, that's a more heavy weight than what I need to tend to.
Yeah.
It just certain words and certain thoughts that will carry more weight, a brick rather than a pebble, than a rock. So that's what we have to be careful of, those of us that are in new thought, is our words are powerful and they carry vibration and energy. So if we can just say, it's easy to say something is wrong, but it is lighter to say, okay, what needs to be tended to? What needs to be done? What can I do? Okay, Lord, what is going on in this that I need to call upon you?
That's very good.
Yeah, when we say heavy, when we say wrong, it's just words that have vibration. Because when we say peace, we want peace. So we need to monitor the words that we say because they carry energy and vibration, not just vowels.
Pictures
I'm going to be done.
and images.
Yeah, hello.
And images.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong when you say God is good all the time. What's wrong?
Yes.
I like to make a comment on this. I said I was reading this, and what I see is that we need to take this personal and not just see it as words, because if we don't take it as a personal thing, a personal responsibility, it means nothing.
Personalized.
So I have to see, I go through this and I see, how do I see it? How do I take it personally? What are my words toward these things that are happening? And understand that it's all about me. Thank you.
Thank you. Right.
Well, that's really good, because what is within is on the outer. And then God is everywhere present. That's like really mystical, ancient teachings, and to use the parallel of nature, that God is everywhere, and that's the divine setup, to look at it deeper beyond the appearances, but we just be still and listen. And in that is the power of the higher knowing, and the higher revelation for the peace and the healing, to get in the peaceful state, to listen and let it be revealed. What is this higher purpose, and what is the higher meaning? Not what anybody else says.
Got it.
Well,
Ahman,
Yeah.
I had an experience this past weekend that was very shocking to me, and it came up with a certain diagnosis. And what I've been saying to myself over and over again is, how could this be? Because I'm in the mindset of being a space where God lives, moves, and has its being. And even though I had some symptoms, I kept that mindset at the center of my consciousness. And I had 2 days of the symptoms, and now my body feels strong. I have none of the symptoms. I have a little bit of a cough, but none of the other symptoms that were initially diagnosed. And I think it was because there was always a part of me that was always connecting with how could this be if I am who I am? And so even though I did some remedies, I before I even did them, I started feeling better and better and better. And so I'm here just to say that this consciousness really is the door to the healing of all things. And I'm complete.
Mhm.
Daphne, did you say taint so like the elder said? The elder that Reverend Amon taught us about. She said taint so, you know. It's powerful, is what we declare it to be.